program. In this video, we're going to do the engine teardown process overview. Aside from the standard safety equipment, like safety glasses and steel toes, there are a couple of concerns you should be aware of. One, there are several quite heavy components. You want to make sure that you don't drop anything you need to move, you do have a good handhold on. Keeping your hands as clean as possible is always a good idea. There are several sharp components. Potentially when you have a machined edge, it can be sharp enough to cut you. So you want to be aware of that. Also, there are some pinch points possible, particularly when working on the bottom end of the engine, when it's rolled over and apart. If you rotate the crankshaft, potentially you can trap a finger between the crankshaft and the block. So those are a few things you want to look out for. All of the fasteners on this engine are metric. So the tools you're going to need are the metric wrenches in the top drawer, the metric sockets on the right hand side of the socket drawer, ratchets and extension as required, your gasket scraper, screwdrivers. You may need a pry bar, and you have this brass hammer for tapping components when required. We have air tools in the bottom of the box. The impact gun and air ratchet can be used for disassembly. Typically, you will crack bolts loose with a breaker bar before using the air tools to spin them out. Right? If you are using the impact gun, you have to use impact sockets. There are a few special tools you'll require for this as well. Most notably a crankshaft socket so we can rotate the engine. A gasket scraper. This is a little bit stiffer type than is included in the standard toolkit. This you'll use to break loose the oil pan, and we'll show you how that's done. And you'll need a harmonic balancer puller set. This is the recommended one for this procedure on this engine. We'll have a look at the external components on the front of this engine. We have the motor mount bracket. We have the serpentine belt idler. We have the water pump, the timing cover, and the accessory drive flange here. On the engine left side, you can see the water pump, the exhaust manifold, the oil fill tube, the starter motor, and you can see the oil pan down here. This is the valve cover and the cylinder head. This is the rear of the engine. From here you can see the flywheel. Your engine may or may not have one of these on it. You can see here a core plug, and this is your bell housing flange. This is where the transmission would bolt up to the engine block assembly. This is your oil pump drive, and you can see the rear side of the intake manifold. From the right hand side of the engine, you can see the intake manifold and the fuel rail. Again, your engine may or may not have this mounted on it when you start to work on it. You also see the oil filter here, and you'll have various sensors like the crankshaft and camshaft position sensor, and then your oil pressure sensor as well. Okay. When removing components like this, you always want to remove them in the reverse sequence of the installation process. In this case, we'll loosen the outside bolts first, and then work our way in. We'll crack them all loose approximately 1/4 of a turn, and then after the pressure on the gasket is released, we can just spin the bolts free. Following the same sequence, remove the exhaust manifold. If your engine is equipped with a starter, you can go ahead and remove it now. Once again, break the bolts loose with a hand tool, and you can spin them out with an air ratchet. Please remember the starter is heavy, so it might be a good idea to have an assistant hold on to it before you pull the last bolt out. Remove the oil fill tube. There's a single bolt that holds it in. The tube may have silicone at the base. If you wiggle it, it should break free. You can now remove the water outlet and the water pump. These components may be stuck in place after you take the bolts out. You can use either a mallet to tap them or a pry bar to break them loose, as shown here. Good. Continue with the removal of the front motor mount bracket and the water inlet tube. The camshaft and crankshaft sensors are held in with one bolt each. Remove the bolt, pull on them while giving them a twist, and they should come out. Following the same pattern, remove the valve cover. You can now remove the rocker arms and push rods. Set them on the bench in pairs for inspection later. If your engine has a lift bracket, you'll have to remove it before you can access the cylinder head bolt. You can now remove the cylinder head bolts. Remember to break them loose in the reverse of the installation pattern, then you can spin them out with an impact. Once all the bolts are removed, you can remove the cylinder head. Be sure to hold onto it firmly, it does have significance. With the cylinder head off, you can remove the cylinder head gasket. It may be stuck to a surface. It's easy enough to remove by sliding a scraper underneath. Try to keep the gasket in as good a condition as possible. You want to inspect it for signs of leakage. The cylinder head dowels are easily removed with a pair of pliers. You can now remove the valve lifter guides. They're each held in place with a single bolt. Remove the bolt, then lift the two guides straight up to remove. With the guides out of the way, you can remove the lifters themselves. They'll pull straight up out of their bores. They're recessed into the block somewhat, so you may need pliers in order to reach them. Now we're going to get oil here, eh? Go ahead. It's inevitable that you're going to get a spill. Just try and collect everything and you get floor dry on what you don't collect. If your engine has a flywheel attached to it, now's a good time to remove it. Typically the easiest way to do this is to engage a pry bar into the teeth of the flywheel and then remove the bolts that retain the flywheel to the crankshaft with the breaker bar and a socket. Remember that the flywheel is heavy. Make sure you have a firm grip on it before you remove the last bolt. You'll now be able to start the oil pan removal process. The pan is held down by several bolts which are easily removed. However, the sealant that seals it in place is quite tenacious. The process to get that loose can be quite time consuming. You'll take the heavy-duty scraper, put it down between the oil pan and the engine block, and tap it with a hammer. Your goal will be to break through the sealant, gradually working your way around the pan until finally you can lift the whole pan free. A little bit of patience will be required to get this done without damaging the fan. If you tip it up, so if you put it here, if you tip it up like this, you're going to start digging down into the engine block. Okay? So we want to keep that fairly flat against the engine block. Okay? Drive it under like that, move it over a little bit, repeat. Okay? Yeah. Using the impact gun, remove the bolt from the center of the accessory drive flange. Okay, we're going to show how to set up this puller. So we have the main body of the puller and this plate that go together like that. You notice there's a bearing in here. So when we turn this nut, it rotates freely on the plate. We have to select a tip that matches the crankshaft bolt threads. And that tip will thread in here. Like that. Okay, now we can thread that into the end of the crankshaft. Same place that the crankshaft bolt came from. Spin that down as close as it will go. And install 3 bolts into the flange. Like that. Now we just need to back this out and pull the balancer off. Now remove the timing cover. To remove the timing chain tensioner, you need a T40 Torx and a 12mm hex socket. It should be noted that in many cases, it's critical to time the engine correctly before disassembling the timing chain and gear set. In the case of this particular engine with the cylinder head off, it is not a critical consideration. The timing gear bolt can be removed with an impact gun. You can now remove the single oil pump retaining bolt. Please take this bolt out only. You want to take the oil pump off in one piece and set it on the bed. Okay, we need to install the crank socket so we can rotate the engine for service. We'll turn number 1 to bottom dead center. Before we disassemble any of these components, we want to make sure they're marked so we can reassemble them correctly. In this case, we see there's numbers on the rod caps. There's also dimples on the main caps. So we'll be able to put them back in their correct location after we take them apart. In order to remove the connecting rod caps, we need to use a 12-point 13mm socket. So you're going to crack these both loose. We'll install these protectors.
Okay.
Okay, and that'll keep the connecting rods, bolts from scratching anything up. And then we slide it down and out.
That's the piston.
Okay, once we have that out, we need to take the protective boots off and reassemble this, all right, so that we don't get these components mixed up.
Once all the piston and rod assemblies have been removed, you can remove the main bearing cap.
Draw number.
When removing the crankshaft, lift it straight up. There's a thrust bearing in the block, and if you try to lift it one end at a time, it'll jam. Using the appropriate Torx bit, remove the camshaft thrust plate. At the back of the engine block, remove the rear cam cover. There's 3 bolts that retain this, and it also may be held in place with sealant, so you may have to break it free with a pry bar or scraper. Remove the single retaining bolt from the oil pump drive assembly. This should come out relatively easily, but you may have to wiggle it and pry it to break it free. You can now remove the camshaft. Although it slides straight out the front of the engine, it's a little more difficult than you might expect. It's easiest if you reinstall the cam bolt to give you a little bit of a handle, and slide your fingers around the back side where you took the rear cam cover off in order to push on the cam and support it a little bit. You need to guide it through all of the cam bearings in the block. Your goal will be to remove the cam without damaging either the camshaft or the cam bearings. When the cam is out, you will have completed the removal of all of the major components of your engine assembly.